Hello, welcome to the latest episode of To The Edge. With me today is Jensen Denoise.
Thank you.
The producer of Hero and You. Yeah. I've become involved with that the last few episodes, and it's quite an interesting experience. He has on a lot of influential people and very insightful insight into comic books.
Right.
So let's talk about that. How did Hero and You get started?
Originally, when I was a kid, I used to love reading comic books, and growing up, as I got older, I had a different perspective of things. I realized that we as people, we can become influential, we can become inspiring to others. So I came up with the idea of being a hero in you. And so originally I decided to have it as a motivational speaker. I was speaking in various places, and my theme was to inspire those who are mentally, physically disabled, or the youth, to be more heroic. Mm-hmm. But as time went on, my passion went more toward television broadcasting than the public speaking aspect. Mm-hmm. So I prior to that, I did like few 5-minute, 10-minute segments, but I decided to actually make it a legitimate show, and so that's when I formed Hero and You.
You know what I feel the benefit of public access television is that you can actually have what you say seen by more people, whereas if you're just speaking in person, only so many people will see it.
Exactly. It's that mass media is like a great tool.
Yeah, the media is the message.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Or is it the medium is the message? But either way. Okay, so tell us about the nature of Hero and You. I mean, you have the roundtable discussion.
Yes.
And then you have the discussion in the TV studio. In fact, in this TV studio.
Yeah. As far as for the nature of it, what happened is I have my co-host, Maritza Barros. She's the co-host, and I actually have a co-producer, Rachel Cook. She co-produced the show, and I have a director.
Yeah.
He's right there, rolling.
I wear a lot of hats.
And so what we do is that we come together, and so we interview people in the community that are good fits to the topic or the theme that we have on per episode, and then afterwards we have like a roundtable discussion on the topic, and then finally we use like a quote for each episode, and the quote that we use, we connect it to a comic book issue. Mm-hmm.
Now you have a website for Hero and You as well.
Yes, I do. It's www.heroinu.com.
And do you have a Facebook page?
Yes, www.facebook.com/theheroinu, and we also have a Twitter account.
Oh, great!
At Hero&You, and we also have a Meetup site.
Really?
Yeah, on www.meetup.com/Hero&You. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How does the Meetup site work?
The Meetup site is we post an event, and so we let people who are on Meetup, they look at it and they join the event, and from there on, just get the word of mouth and spread it. Mm-hmm.
That's good. So what type of guests have you had on the show? Because you've had illustrious people on.
Oh, yes. We've had various people. We had various guests on our show. We've had doctors. We've had politicians, high school students. Generally, we have each episode, we have high school students talk about the theme and show how they've been very influential in the community. And recently, we have an upcoming episode. We have Boston Celtics Phil Pressey, point guard. So it ranges from various people.
I would say various because not only have you had someone from the Celtics, you've also had the mayor of Brockton on the show.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, Mayor Bill Carpenter, not once but twice. He was on our Take an Initiative episode, and he's going to be on our upcoming episode, which is coming by the end of the year, Staying Active, why it's very important to stay fit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is very important to stay fit because I don't know if you've seen the film WALL-E where everyone in the future is obese, but we don't want that future.
No, we don't want that.
Yeah. Okay, so when you're looking at a topic, how do you decide which hero would go with that?
Oh, it varies. The thing is, with the topic that I choose, sometimes I may choose the topic and then I select the hero, or other times I may choose the hero and then I select the topic. Like, for instance, innovation was a topic that I always wanted to talk about because I'm a big fan of Iron Man. So I decided to do an episode on innovation. And then Overcoming Fear, which is a Green Lantern theme, I decided to use Green Lantern and then use Overcoming Fear. But as far as for the topics, I usually choose my topics after an episode based on like, okay, where the episode left off, where can I continue?
Yeah.
And then I love to read comic books on a consistent basis, so I usually like do a flash memory and be like, all right, what was the latest comic book I read recently that ties into this?
Okay, so you're actually tying back into recent comic books.
Yes, exactly.
Because, not to give away spoilers, but you mentioned Wonder Woman 30 in a recent episode.
Exactly.
And so that was Wonder Woman 30 of the New 52 relaunch.
Exactly, which came out April 2014, so, right.
Okay. All right, good. Because I was wondering in the back of my mind, well, which issue 30? Because there have been a lot of issue 30s.
Oh,
of Wonder
yeah.
Woman.
Oh, no. It's New 52. No
Okay.
pre-DC universe. No.
Okay.
Just try to make it concurrent as possible.
Yeah. That's good. That's good.
Yeah, definitely.
Good because, I mean, not that the early comics didn't have a message, but, you know, they'd be totally different. Like Golden Age, you had World War II propaganda.
Yeah. Yeah, so I try to stay relevant with the topic and the issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
In fact, I think there was an issue of Batman where Batman was meeting GI soldiers and they were fighting Hitler.
Oh, God. Wow, a lot has changed. Oh, yeah.
No, but getting back to Hero and You,
Right.
So what do you feel that you're most proud of with Hero and You to date?
To date, the thing that I'm most proud of is my audience. I just try to stay connected with my audience and try to keep updated with them, communicating with them on Twitter, because the program is great, and my guests are very loyal. But if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't have the Hero and You, because you guys watch it constantly and consistently, and so it's something I'm really appreciating, and the audience is growing rapidly and aggressively. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, you have a very proactive approach when it comes to getting guests onto the show, especially on location.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was there for one of the episodes that recently aired.
Yeah, taking
and
initiative.
yeah, and it was interesting because you just walked up to people like the high school students and whatnot,
Yeah.
or the surgeon who works in the hospital.
Yeah.
You just approached him, and I didn't expect him to be on the show.
Yeah, I try to be approachable, and I don't know if it's my extrovert personality, but I'm just like, I'm very open and receptive to anyone who feel as if they have the experience of that topic and they want to share it. Because my attitude is like, there are a lot of stories out there and people want to share it, but it's the opportunity for them to share it is another. So therefore, I try to open doors for them.
Mm-hmm. That's very good.
Yeah,
and the people who you used to work with, have you shown them the show?
Yes, I have. I have. They watch it. My show also airs in various other stations. First one is Bridgewater, BTV, Marshfield, MCTV, PAC TV, which is the Plymouth area, DC TV, which is Dartmouth, and last but not least, BCA, Brockton Community Access.
That's funny how you say DC TV.
Not DC Comics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe someday.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Yes. Hero and You brought to you by DC, but then Marvel would get jealous. And consequently Disney.
Oh goodness, yeah. But so my main priority is to showcase that there are heroes in the community. There is good in this community, despite what's going on in the news or despite what people are saying or hearing. But there's actually good, and so my priority is to showcase these talents and showcase these good deeds that are out there.
What would you say is the biggest difference between someone being a hero in real life and a hero in a comic book?
There's similarities but there's differences. Well, for the similarities, there's the intention, the selfless act, and also there's the quality, the great quality that inspires and moves people. But the only difference between the comics and the real life is in the comics, ideally, there's usually the good guy, bad guy.
Right.
You know, the heroes, the villains. But in real life, there's that gray area. It's as far as who's the good guy and the bad guy is very debatable. And the only way that we determine what's good and right is if it's ethical, if it's legal, but also if it's accomplished or if it's still has potential.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a more complexity in real life.
There's another thing in a comic book, you can vanquish the enemy,
Yeah.
whereas in real life you really can't. Or in a comic book, whoever stays dead.
Yeah. Yeah, in real life, unfortunately, you can't come back.
So, I mean, there were real consequences and things you have to deal with. But
Yeah.
the comic books, they can be used as inspiration for, well, maybe I can try harder and get this thing done.
Exactly, exactly. And so I think that's really amazing about the comic book is that there's some inspirations. And these writers, they've got inspirations from various places from their childhood, even biblical. So it just goes on, but it's just like they had something in their life inspired them to create a work that will later inspire others in other generations. It's just really fascinating.
So, I'm going to backtrack a little to the comic books.
Yeah.
When did you first become interested in comic books and how?
My first interest was in 1994. When I was young, I used to love watching the superheroes like Batman, X-Men, Spider-Man. But there was this one TV show that caught my attention. It was Iron Man. I didn't know anything about Iron Man prior, and so it just something about his personality was attracted to me. I was gravitated to it. But the show had certain restrictions and certain limitations, only a half hour. So I wanted to learn
Right.
more about him. So that's why I started reading the comic books to learn more about his character. And then I was more interested in it. And then from there, I just started reading other characters and other books.
Now, this is a contentious issue. With the New 52, they did the reboot so everyone could jump on.
Right.
And obviously, in the 90s, there was no such reboot. And
No.
you just dove right in and you had no trouble getting the story right.
Exactly. And keep in mind, back in the 90s, it wasn't like they had like the internet database like we have now. We can get information.
Yeah.
So you basically had to learn on your own.
I think that sometimes these comic book publishers, they tend to underestimate their audience.
True.
I mean, it all has to be accessible, but if you find something that's interesting, you're going to want to go back and look at it.
Yeah, actually, that's well spoken because it goes back to storytelling. It's just like the fact that just if you don't even have to know the backstory, the history, but if the story is captivating, you'll just be interested and continue following the story. So I totally agree.
So do you think that Hero and You will get people interested in comic books or realize that there are things to those comics that they might have dismissed before? Because some people would be like, oh, it's a comic book.
I mean, it varies. Some people will see and they'll be like, oh, it's just a comic book. But other people will be intrigued and be like, wait a minute, this thing you can learn from these guys. And so it varies. There's so many things you can take from the show. You can be interested in comic books or taking the initiative to help your community or just finding other ways to improve yourself. So basically, our motto is to help improve lives one theme at a time. And as far as for the word hero, it's very broad. And what we do is that there's so many qualities and traits of a hero that each trait and each quality, we branch it out as an episode of a topic.
So what do you think are the most admirable traits of a hero? What do you think it takes to be a hero?
I would have to say discipline. Discipline. As far as in a comic wise, no matter how many abilities or many resources you have, but when you know that you have to have some form of structure, I think it's really important.
Here's,
Not being selfish.
yep.
And not being selfish, just taking initiative to help others.
And that's definitely something that a lot of people in real life can learn from.
Yeah, oh, exactly, absolutely.
Sadly.
Absolutely.
Okay, it's very easy to distinguish a hero from a villain, but how do you distinguish a hero from an anti-hero? What do you think is the key difference here? Because you're never going to say, find the anti-hero in you.
Well, the hero and the anti-hero, I'll tell you one thing, they both have the same goal. But at the same time, how do they get the goal accomplished is another question. And it goes back to various other things. When you accomplish a goal, is it ethical? Is it legal? There's other factors to it. Is there like a guideline you have to follow? Anti-hero, they just want to make sure the job is done, but they don't. There's other things that they overlook at, or not interested in overlooking at.
Good. So.
But one thing, but at the same, sorry to cut you
No,
off.
no. Go ahead. Go
But
ahead.
one thing that people need to understand is that anti-heroes, despite their behaviors or their methods that they have, little do they know, they look up to the heroes. they look up to the heroes without knowing. So what does that mean is that as an individual, whatever you do, whatever action you have, you're being observed, but at the same time, you can inspire someone.
Right. Or at the very least, the anti-heroes are jealous of the heroes.
To an extent, I can imagine, of course, but also, like, I don't mean to talk about comic books, but you know, you got a guy like Captain America.
Yep.
And one of the biggest anti-heroes are the ones that look up to him. Who would imagine like a guy like Punisher, a guy like Wolverine? They actually have some level of respect for Captain America.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, without even knowing. Yeah.
So, Hero and You,
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed that it's been spread out to a lot of different cities and towns. And how do you go about syndicating your program?
Word of mouth. If there's people in the town that heard about the show and they're really interested, they'll talk to their community access and ask them, and then I meet up with the community access and then work things out, and then they play the show.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but it also airs. It's also online. So go to the website, see previous episodes, and various towns and even various states, even countries, actually watch the show.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Can you tell us about your background in helping out with the community?
Oh yeah, helping out in the community. I've as a church member, I've done volunteer work. I did charity work, collecting canned foods for those who are needy. I've done a lot of Walk for Hunger events,
Mm-hmm.
and I also try to work with events to help the youth. But one of my biggest community that I actually work with is the mentally and physically disabled, and this audience, ironically, is a big audience who actually watch our program, and they are loyal viewers, and I participate in their events and their activities, and then promote their needs.
Yeah.
And show that despite their disabilities or their challenges or limitations, that they are still heroes, and they can find a hero in them. We all can find a hero in all of us, if we want to.
Mm-hmm. The show is also being broadcast worldwide, from what I understand.
Yes, right.
Who watches your show in other countries?
Oh, wow, that's a very good question, which is kind of funny. Last time I checked online and did my data info, Canada, Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
Netherlands.
Wow, that's kind of odd.
Yeah. Cape Verde, of course, Haiti, Brazil, and France, and also Japan.
Well, you've got quite a spread.
Yeah. I wish I knew the audience, but yeah, somehow they're watching our program, yeah.
But you have an email, right? And people can email you, so you've got the fans,
Oh, yeah,
and you can get the feedback.
exactly.
Good.
So far, feedback's been really great, really positive. Fans always asking me, when are you going to have such and such character? When are you going to have such and such character on this episode? Yeah.
So if they request, they've obviously put in requests to be like, can you do this? Can you do him? Can you do her? Can you do him?
Yeah. One character that many people requested, and we were successful at her, was Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wonder Woman was, the female audience were like, when are we going to have a Wonder Woman? You know, she's a hero. We need someone to represent the woman community. And so we actually did, and it was on goal setting.
Yep. Big question I want to know is, when is there going to be a Wonder Woman movie?
According from what I've heard, it's going to be 2017. Warner Brothers is going to produce it.
So that's going to be long after this episode airs.
Yeah.
Now, if you happen to be watching this in 2017, hopefully that movie turned out well.
I hope so too. I hope so. Yeah.
You never know. Sometimes people watch this a few years down the line.
Oh yeah.
We're forward compatible.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And Hero and You will reach high plateaus by that point. So you have definite ambitions for the show.
Absolutely, I do.
So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to talk about the topics of Hero and You one by one, starting with the first episode. What was that about?
First episode I did was about giving, because I realized that at least the stage of my life that I was in at the time was the importance of giving. It's like, if you want something great or something good, you also have to give something out there. Mm-hmm. So it was during the holiday season, we did an episode on giving. We interviewed Marshfield High School.
Yeah.
We interviewed Arthur, who actually wrote a book on spirituality. he talks about the importance of giving and spiritual aspect. And we also interviewed a young gentleman named Aaron Wilson, who's a motivational speaker now, so he did an awesome job talking about giving. And the comic book example that I used for that episode was from Hawkeye. Hawkeye from the Avengers. As you may know, he does have godlike thunder powers, or he doesn't have like excessive healing factors with adamantium claws, but he only has a bow and arrow. So if he gets injured, it's really tough on him. However, there was one scenario. He was living in an apartment, and the landlord that was living in the apartment decided to triple up the rent. And so this made the tenants of the apartment homeless. So what did
tripling the rent.
That's
Unethical.
Yeah, very unethical.
Anyway.
However, what did Hawkeye decided to do? He actually collected as much money as possible, bought the apartment building, and paid off all the tenants' rents, and they went back to their homes and lived peacefully. And he could have used that money for his own personal interest, but he decided to give, and he knew the importance of giving.
It's a very selfless act.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't need to use superhuman powers. It's just only having a good deed. So it just shows you that giving is really important, but keep in mind you're dealing with humans. It's really good to give things to people, but also it's really important to develop a relationship with people or some level of communication. So the next episode we did was on relationship building. This episode we interviewed Brockton High School. We interviewed Newbie Ruto, then the former mayor, Linda Bolzati. And they talk about the importance of relationship building, how relationship building is really important for them, social media. And we connected that episode. And one thing about our show, we use quotes from famous people or famous people in history and then connect it to the comic book and see how it ties to the theme of the episode. So we use a quote coming from Dr. Martin Luther King saying, "We live in a world of mutuality. If one thing affects one person, it affects another person." And so we connected that to Justice League comic book. We were just saying how Justice League in their world, in their continuity, people look up to them. And so therefore, with Justice League as a group, they develop relationship and trust with each other, some level of camaraderie to collaborate with each other. However, in this issue, Superman got possessed by this villain named Cheetah. And so it was a major, serious situation that the Justice League had to handle. So Batman said a comment, he was like, "We have to save Superman. He's a very important man in this world. If something affects him, it'll affect the rest of all of us." It was just showing you that Batman realized the importance of Superman and the importance of the team working together. And I explained that just the way people in that world look up to the Justice League, and they need the Justice League. In the real world, people need one another. It's like the truth is we can't collaborate anything. We can't do anything by ourselves. Rome wasn't built by one man. So we talked about the importance of relationship building. But one thing that's really good about relationship building, Roland, is the fact that networking. When you network, you meet new people and you come up with ideas, which was led to our next episode, which was innovation. This episode, we use a quote coming from Steve Jobs saying, "Innovation distinguishes leadership and followers." So we had interviewed Bridgewater Rainham High School, and this group called TJ Square, and there was a group of students who actually build robots.
Wow.
Yeah. So how they work together and just building a robot. And then afterwards, we interviewed Brockton Hospital's radiology department, showing their latest features of their radiology. And then we also interviewed Good Samaritan Hospital, and they were showing the Da Vinci, the robotic surgery. You can be a doctor or a surgeon in China and doing a procedure here in Boston due to this robotic surgery. You can do a procedure remote.
That's insane. That sounds like something that would actually be part of a comic book.
Yeah, exactly. So we used that and we connected the Steve Jobs quote to an Iron Man comic book. Steve Jobs again says, "Innovation distinguishes leaders from followers." So this episode, this issue, Tony Stark's met a friend of his who decides to build a spaceship, and he has this product called the Extremis. And so Tony Stark went to check out the spaceship, and come to find out, Tony Stark realized this guy that was using the spaceship and the Extremis for his own personal greed. He's just using people so he can dominate the space. So Tony Stark was like, wait a minute, this is unethical. This is not real. And Tony Stark like backed away from the project and just rejected it. Despite the guy having other people working for him, Tony Stark realized this is wrong. So once Tony Stark got back home, he did some brainstorming and soul searching. He's like, wow, for years I've been doing so many saving heroes, doing a lot of great things, but I want to think big. I want to be inspired. So what did Tony Stark decided to do? Instead of following his friend, doing something unethical, he decided to build the spaceship just so he can, spaceship armor, so just so he can go to space, explore, so he can become innovative, expand his horizon. Mm-hmm. And it just shows you that with innovation, you have great ideas. And just the whole idea of inventions, like, goodness, you had an idea to the edge, and this is like, it's going on over 40 episodes, and it's going really well. Yeah. Just the idea. But at the same time, it's easy to have an idea is one, but what about fear? Many people have ideas, but many people can't overcome their fears to present their ideas. So overcoming fear was the next episode we did. This episode was really interesting. We used a quote from Nelson Mandela, and it ironically was released the same week Mandela passed away.
Wow, that is very eerie.
Yeah. So it was very interesting. So Mandela had a quote that say, "A brave man is not the one who doesn't have fear, but the one who overcomes his fear." And we connected that to a Green Lantern comic book, because Green Lantern's theme is all about overcoming fear. This episode we have Silver Lake High School from Kingston. They talk about overcoming fear of leadership. We have a lady, Belinda Rosenblum. She talks about overcoming fear of finances. And we also have a fireman from School Street who talks about overcoming fear in his line of work. But little do people know, that same lady who talks about overcoming fear of finance, she also experienced the Boston bombing. The same guy who talks about overcoming fear as a fireman, he also experienced 9/11. So they talk about overcoming fear in a literal sense. But all it came down to, whatever fear you have, it may be a teddy bear, or it may be clowns, or maybe a very major threat. But one thing people need to know is that you can find help. You have people to help you. You can find support. So that's how we use the topic overcoming fear. But now, after you overcome your fear, take action. You overcame your psychological limitations, but now you overcame your fear. Take action. So we did the episode on taking initiative. Actually, that was the first episode.
Yeah, it was my first episode.
Your first episode. You directed and also made an appearance there. So
yeah,
that was pretty cool. That episode, we interviewed the first new mayor of Brockton, Bill Carpenter.
Yeah, Bill Carpenter. So you've done 2 mayors on your show already.
Yeah, 2 mayors on our show. So Bill Carpenter, he explained about his initiative to help in the community of Brockton. We interviewed Pembroke High School's National Honor Society, how they take initiative to help the community. And then we also interviewed Rui Lopes from 1975 Production in Miguel. They talk about taking initiative in filmmaking.
That's great.
Yeah, so by the way, shout out to Rui Lopes with his film Fallen Dominoes, with the success of that. So we used that, and how the importance of taking initiative is vital. Now the episode that we're about to release right now is called Goal Setting. Once you take that initiative, you accomplish that goal. It doesn't end there. You accomplish that goal, set another goal, a higher goal. So this episode, we actually, like I said, we have Phil Presley on this episode. We have Dartmouth High School on this episode. Dartmouth High School's film production class. Shout out to Joshua Molding for having you have your students on that show. And then we have Home for Little Wanderers, who talk about the importance of setting goals for the youth who are in need. And so it was pretty cool. And then we had a roundtable discussion with Partha Patel, a surgeon of residency. He talks about goal setting in the health field. Mm-hmm. So with that, we use a quote from Beyonce. As I accomplished something, I set a higher goal. We connected that to a Wonder Woman story. And this Wonder Woman story, basically, Wonder Woman saves the people in her land. She accomplished a goal, but she decided to set a higher goal. So because of that, she asserted herself to become queen, of the Paradise Island, that land, and also she asked the people to help her raise a child. You know, as a queen, she realized that raising a child is a priority, and that was a good example of goal setting. And afterwards, I might as well tell them about the next episode.
Yeah, why not?
The next episode that's coming by the end of the year. It's good to set goals, but at the same time, it's very important to stay motivated. So one of the most important ways to stay motivated is staying active. So this episode, I don't want to give details about this episode yet, but just the importance of staying active, staying fit, and get some serious workout.
Yeah.
Because in order for you to be a superhero, you have to be in good shape.
It's true, it's true.
Yeah.
Okay, that was very insightful on Hero and You, and those of you who haven't seen the show yet should definitely watch Hero and You. And in the meantime, we'll see you next time on To the Edge.